What if the biggest change of your life has already started, and you have been so close to it that you simply have not noticed the 10 small signs pointing straight at it? And by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to recognize every single one. This is how it almost always happens for Gemini. The change does not arrive in a sudden explosion of dramatic events. It does not announce itself with a clear beginning and a clear signal that says this is the moment everything is different now. For you, the change begins underground. It begins as a series of small, almost imperceptible shifts in how you feel at the start of a day, in what catches your attention, in what no longer holds your interest the way it used to. These small signs are easy to miss. They are easy to rationalize away, to dismiss as moods or coincidences, to overlook because they do not look like the dramatic change you may have imagined. But they are not moods. They are not coincidences. They are the early language of a very large transformation, and once you know how to read that language, you will never miss it again. Stay with this video, because by the time you reach the 10th sign, you will not only recognize that something big is brewing for you, you will understand why it has taken the shape it has, and what your role is in letting it fully emerge. Sign 1. The first small sign that big change is brewing for Gemini is one you may have already noticed, but perhaps set aside without giving it the weight it deserves. It is the sign of restlessness. A particular kind of restlessness that does not come from anxiety or discontent alone, but from a deeper source. A sense of movement happening somewhere inside you that has not yet found its direction. A feeling of energy looking for a new channel. When you are simply tired or stressed, restlessness has a frantic quality to it. It feels urgent, scattered, and uncomfortable. But the restlessness that signals the beginning of big change has a different texture. It is more like something stirring than something spinning. It is the feeling of a person standing at a threshold, not yet through the door but fully aware that the door is there, and that something real is waiting on the other side of it. For Gemini, this kind of restlessness often shows up in the small moments. You find yourself staring out the window for a few extra seconds before coming back to what you were doing. You feel a sudden, unprovoked desire to do something completely different from your usual routine, to take a different path, to reach out to someone you have not spoken to in a long time, to pick up something you set down months or years ago. You feel a low hum of anticipation without being able to name exactly what you are anticipating. That hum is not nothing. That hum is the sound of your life getting ready to move in a new direction. The sign is not the movement itself. It is the restlessness that arrives just before the movement begins. If you have felt it recently, even just once or twice in a quiet moment, then something is already in motion. The change has begun at the level where all real change begins, beneath the surface, in the part of you that knows before you know. Sign 2. The second small sign is about attention, specifically about where your attention keeps being drawn, even when you try to redirect it elsewhere. This sign is quiet, and it operates a little like water finding the path of least resistance. When big change is brewing, your attention begins to drift naturally toward the thing that is about to become important in your life. You might notice that a particular subject keeps coming up, that you keep reading about it, hearing about it, encountering it in conversations even when you were not looking for it. Or you might notice that a certain kind of image or possibility keeps appearing in your mind, not obsessively but gently, almost like a friendly reminder that arrives at random intervals throughout the day. Your attention is not random. It is guided by something deeper than conscious thought, by the part of you that is already oriented toward where you are going, even before the rest of you has caught up. For Gemini, this sign can be especially visible, because you are naturally curious, and your mind moves quickly between many different things. When something keeps managing to hold your attention across all that movement, when it keeps showing up no matter what else you are focused on, that is significant. That persistence is the universe pointing a quiet finger. It is your future self sending signals back through time, showing you what to pay attention to. In the next few days, notice what keeps returning to your mind unbidden. Notice what you find yourself gravitating toward without a clear reason. Write it down if you can. Whatever that thing is, that persistent, recurring focus of attention, it is part of what the change that is brewing is going to bring into your life. Do not dismiss it. Follow the thread. Sign 3. Sign 3 is about the quality of your sleep, and more specifically about your dreams. When big change is brewing beneath the surface, the sleeping mind often registers it in ways the waking mind has not yet processed. You may have noticed recently that your dreams have been more vivid than usual, more emotionally charged, more narrative, more full of images and situations that feel significant, even when you cannot quite explain why. Or you may have noticed that you are waking from sleep with a feeling, not a specific memory but a quality of feeling, of something having happened during the night. Something resolved or released or shown to you in a language you almost understood. For Gemini, whose mind is almost always active and engaged, dreams can be one of the primary ways that deeper wisdom communicates. When you are in alignment with a coming shift, the sleeping hours become a kind of laboratory, a space where the subconscious mind works with the energy of the new chapter in ways that the waking mind cannot easily access. You do not need to analyze every dream in detail, but if you have noticed a general shift in the quality or intensity of your dream life recently, a sense that something is happening at night that feels meaningful and alive, that is sign 3. It is the internal, nonverbal part of you acknowledging and working with the change that is coming. It is your whole self, not just your waking thoughts but the full depth of who you are beginning to engage with what is approaching. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Sign 4. The fourth small sign that big change is brewing for Gemini is a growing dissatisfaction with things that used to satisfy you. And it is important to understand what this dissatisfaction actually means, because it is very easy to misinterpret. When you find yourself bored by something that once engaged you, or restless in a situation that once felt comfortable, or underwhelmed by something that once seemed like enough, the easy interpretation is that something is wrong with you, that you have become ungrateful or difficult or impossible to please. But that is not what is happening at all. What is actually happening is that you have grown. Your capacity has expanded. Your sense of what is possible for you has shifted, and the things that once matched your level of expansion no longer quite fit. This is not a problem. It is a sign of genuine evolution. When a plant grows too large for its pot, it does not mean the plant is broken. It means the pot needs to change. For Gemini right now, the pot is changing, or rather, you are in the process of recognizing that it needs to. The dissatisfaction you feel is the pressure of a life that is ready to expand into a larger container. It is uncomfortable, yes. It can feel ungrateful or restless or hard to explain to the people around you. But it is not a flaw. It is growth. It is the sound of someone becoming ready for something bigger. When you notice this sign, when something that used to feel like enough no longer quite does, receive it as information rather than as a complaint. Ask yourself, what would actually feel like enough right now? What would feel expansive rather than constraining? The answer to that question is pointing directly at what the change is going to bring. Sign 5. Sign 5 is happening in the way you relate to time, specifically in a new and unfamiliar sense that time matters, and that you want to use it more intentionally. For much of life, time is simply the medium in which we move, the background, the container, something we have so much of that it is easy not to think about it. But when big change is approaching, something shifts in our relationship to time. It becomes more present to us. We begin to feel, not with anxiety but with a kind of clear-eyed honesty, that the time we have is not unlimited, and that the life we actually want to live is worth moving toward now rather than later. For Gemini, this shift in relationship to time is one of the most meaningful signs that something real is brewing. Because for you, it represents not urgency but clarity, the clarity that comes from finally knowing, at the level of felt experience rather than intellectual understanding, that now is the time to begin. You may notice this sign as a growing motivation to start things you have been putting off. Not because of external pressure or deadline, but simply because something inside you is no longer content to wait. You may find yourself thinking more often about what you actually want to create in the years ahead. You may feel a new seriousness, not heaviness but seriousness, about your own life, your own choices, your own direction. That seriousness is not aging. It is wisdom. It is the part of you that knows the change is coming and is getting ready to meet it fully. Sign 6. The sixth small sign is about your body's appetite for simplicity. When you are in the middle of complexity, overwhelm, or prolonged stress, the mind tends to seek more complexity as a way of processing, more information, more input, more stimulation. But when something is genuinely shifting and new clarity is approaching, the body and mind begin to crave something different. They crave quiet, space, simplicity. You may have noticed recently a growing desire to clear things out, to declutter a space in your home that has felt crowded, to simplify your schedule, to have fewer obligations and more open space in your day. You may have found yourself more drawn to silence than to noise, more comfortable with an evening of genuine rest than with the busy stimulation that once felt necessary. For Gemini, this is particularly telling. You are a sign that loves richness of ideas, of conversations, of experiences and input. When even you begin to feel drawn towards simplicity, it is because something deeper is asking for room. The change that is brewing needs space in your life to arrive. It cannot come into a life that is already packed to its edges with noise and obligation. The growing desire for simplicity is your inner wisdom creating that space, clearing the way, making room, preparing the ground for what is coming. Honor that desire. Let yourself simplify. Let yourself have some quiet. What arrives into that quiet will be worth more than everything you cleared away to make room for it. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Sign 7. Sign 7 is about gratitude, not the performed kind, not the kind you feel because you think you should, but a sudden, spontaneous, almost involuntary sense of appreciation that catches you off guard. For Gemini, this sign often arrives in the most ordinary moments. You are doing something completely routine, making something to eat, watching the light change in the late afternoon, hearing a familiar voice, and for a moment, without warning, something inside you quietly registers. This is good. This is real. This matters. That moment of unplanned gratitude, that soft, wordless recognition of what is actually good in your life, is sign 7. And it is more significant than it appears. Because gratitude at this level is not a response to circumstances. It is a response to alignment. It arises when the energy inside you is moving in a direction that is genuinely yours. When you are on your path rather than someone else's. When something in your life is resonating with the truth of who you are. It is the heart saying yes to the direction of your life. For Gemini, in a period of big change, this kind of spontaneous gratitude is a compass reading. It tells you that something in your current life, some thread, some relationship, some way of being, is real and worth bringing forward into the next chapter. Pay attention to when it arises. Notice what was happening in the moments before it appeared. What you are grateful for in those unguarded moments is part of the map of what the change is building toward. Sign 8. The 8th sign is about the way certain old stories about yourself have been quietly losing their grip. Every person carries a collection of stories about who they are, about their limits, their patterns, their tendencies, their past. Some of those stories are useful. They carry real wisdom from real experience. But some of them are simply old narratives that were formed in very different circumstances and that no longer accurately describe the person you have become. For Gemini, these stories can be particularly stubborn. Because you are a sign that analyzes, that understands, that can articulate your own patterns with impressive clarity, and that very clarity can make the old stories feel permanent. You know them so well that they begin to feel like facts rather than interpretations. But lately, something has been shifting in how firmly those old stories hold you. You may have noticed moments where you surprised yourself, where you responded to something differently than you would have expected, where you held a boundary you once would have let go, where you were kinder to yourself than old habit would have dictated. Those moments of surprise are sign 8. They are the evidence that the old story is no longer the only story, that a newer, truer, more expansive story is beginning to write itself through your actual choices and responses. You do not have to do anything dramatic with this sign. Simply notice it. Simply acknowledge when those moments of self-surprise arrive, that you are not who you used to be. You are someone who is becoming. And the story that is writing itself through you right now is one that is worth reading and worth living. Sign 9. Sign 9 shows up in the quality of your hope, a small but unmistakable brightening in how you feel when you think about the future. This is different from wishful thinking. It is different from denial or forced optimism. It is a real felt sense that something good is on its way to you, not as a certainty, not as a guarantee, but as a genuine possibility that you are beginning to believe in rather than immediately deflecting with practical objections. For Gemini, this brightening of hope is one of the clearest signs that something is shifting because you are not, by nature, an uncritical optimist. You see too much, understand too much about the complexity of things, to simply assume that everything will work out. Your hope, when it is real, has been hard-won. It carries the weight of what you have been through. All the moments when things were harder than expected, all the times you had to navigate disappointment or redirection. And so when that hope genuinely brightens, when you catch yourself thinking about the future and feeling something closer to yes than to maybe, that is significant. It means something in you has received new information. Not facts necessarily, not evidence that can be listed and analyzed, but something deeper, an internal sense arriving from the part of you that knows things before the mind can explain them, that the next chapter is going to be good. Trust that sense. That quiet brightening of hope is not naivety. It is your soul's early response to what is already on its way. Sign 10. You have reached the 10th and final sign. And as promised, this is the one that confirms everything, the one most Geminis overlook because it feels too ordinary to be significant. Sign 10 is this: you are still here. You are still paying attention. You are still watching, still listening, still genuinely caring about what is happening in your own life. And that, after everything, is not a small thing. There are people who have stopped paying attention. There are people who have made peace, or something that resembles peace, with a life that no longer moves, who have settled into routine without curiosity, into habit without intention, into a day-to-day existence that asks nothing of them and offers little in return. You are not one of those people. The fact that you are here, watching this, genuinely engaging with the question of what is moving in your life, that is the 10th sign. It is the sign that you are still awake, that you still have the fire of caring about your own story, that you still believe at some level that your life has places it has not yet gone, depths it has not yet found, possibilities that have not yet fully arrived. That belief, that quiet but persistent belief in the unfinished nature of your own becoming, is the engine behind every change that has ever happened for you. It is the engine behind the change that is currently brewing. Big change does not come to people who have stopped caring. It comes to people who are still here, still paying attention, still willing to be moved by what they discover. You are still here. And that, Gemini, is the most important sign of all. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are. These 10 small signs are not predictions. They are not promises. They are reflections of what is already alive in you and around you. A language that the coming change is using to prepare you before it fully arrives. Gemini, something real is on its way to you. It has already begun. And now that you know how to read the signs, you will not miss a single word of what it is telling you.